Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. My name is Jake Delhomme. Let's get started. Alright, so this is the next video in the series of the draft class recaps, and today we've landed on the Carolina Panthers, and this is a pretty cool draft. Is it the best draft out of the day or out of the weekend? That's debatable. But is it cool for a variety of reasons? Yes. So let's talk about it. Alright, so leading up to the draft, I think a lot of people had defense pretty well pegged to the 7th overall pick. There was, talk maybe if Justin Herbert or Tua Tagovailoa slide past the Chargers at 6, then they'd have a little bit more of a difficult decision to make. There was even talks of them potentially trading down. But as we saw in the first round, in the top 10, everybody sort of just held pat and let the board fall to them. Now, what did they decide to do? Well, they went to pretty much straight up chalk. Round 1, pick 7 overall. Derek Brown, defensive tackle out of Auburn. This was a pretty, I would call it a pretty well unkept secret, if you will, because a lot of the mock drafts leading up to this had Derek Brown in this spot. I myself was a little bit more on the bolder side, and because I like Javon Kinlaw a little bit more at the same position, I was starting to mock Javon Kinlaw a little bit. Some people even had Isaiah Simmons in this spot because of the retirement of Luke Kuechly this year. But overall, Derek Brown, solid top 10 selection. I think he probably could have been had a little bit later. But, it's, as I've said in these videos, get the guy you want when you have the opportunity. Don't mess around and play games. Just do it. And they did. So I think Derek Brown will be the Panthers are obviously very excited about him. I've seen reports that they believe he can be very versatile in the defense. He could play nose, he could play a 3 technique, maybe even 5 technique. So they're very excited about him elevating his pass rushing game and being an overall disruptor in the defensive line, which is what he was at Auburn. All right, moving on. Round 2, pick 38, Grosse Mattos from Penn State, edge rusher. This is a good spot for him. This is about where he should have been. I know a lot of people were like, either he could potentially go in the first round back when the Buffalo Bills still had the 22nd pick. He could have been somebody that they traded back in for. The disparity in the edge rusher class this year was pretty interesting to watch, because after Chase Young, a lot of people sort of had K'Lavon Chaisson as the default number 2, even though that gap between Young and Chaisson was pretty thick. Then there was a pretty big discrepancy about who would be the next one off the board after that. Would it be A.J. Epinesa? Would it be Grosse Mattos? A lot of people even had Julian Okwara and Terrell Lewis ranked pretty high. But as we saw, they went with Grosse Mattos, and I think this is a great selection. I think they believe he can anchor the strong side of the defensive line for years to come. Next, they traded back into the second round, pick 64 overall, Jeremy Chinn, safety from Southern Illinois, and this is the result of having a great Senior Bowl. The Panthers even said in a report that I read that this is where they fell in love with him, was at the Senior Bowl, and they were very concerned that other teams were going to catch on and want to get him. So they told themselves in the 3rd round, hey, we don't believe that this kid's going to be around by the next time we pick, so we got to go get this guy. And they did. And I think it was their general manager that said that they believe that he's got a rare combination of size and speed. That's what they liked about him. And as a fan of the Missouri Valley Football Conference, which is why I'm wearing the Youngstown State hat today, he comes from Southern Illinois, which is a smaller school, and it's always nice to see the smaller schools get represented, and even, picks this high in the 2nd round. So it's great to see. I'm going to be a fan of Jeremy Chinn, I think, going forward, which is cool. So that was the end of their first 2 days of picks. Overall, the top 3, love it. This is all 3 great starters right here that they got on the first 2 days. Moving on to day 3, round 4, pick 113, Troy Pride, corner from Notre Dame. I love this pick. I think Troy Pride is going to excel at the next level, and they definitely needed corner help. As you can see, there's a running theme here, which we'll talk about at the end. Next in the 5th round, pick 152, Kenny Robinson, the safety from West Virginia, aka the only XFL player to get drafted this weekend. And they made history with that. I don't remember if the last time the XFL went defunct, if any of the players got drafted, or if they were just considered free agents. Somebody look that up for me. But Kenny Robinson is the former XFL star that gets a shot at the big time, which is great. Moving on, round 6, pick 184, Bravion Roy, defensive tackle from Baylor, and then round 7, pick 221, Stan Thomas Oliver, the linebacker from FIU. I know his name is Stanley, but in an interview after the draft, he said he prefers Stan. So I'm going to go with Stan. Mad respect for that. As somebody whose first name can be interpreted 3 different ways, potentially, you know, say what you want. So Stan Thomas Oliver, 7th round, pick 221, linebacker from Florida International. The last 2 picks, nothing to write home about. They're not bad. There's nothing wrong with it. I think the Stan Thomas Oliver pick is probably the better of the 2, given that you get more depth at the linebacker position after the retirement of Luke Kuechly. And then they'll probably address that next year. I know they could have had Isaiah Simmons, but Derek Brown is probably a better fit for their scheme. And yeah, that is the 2020 NFL draft for the Carolina Panthers in a nutshell. And what I like about this draft, and we talked about this is a cool draft. It's not maybe not the best draft of the weekend, but it's still really cool because you get your XFL player, you get 3 starters in the top 2 rounds, and you have all defense. They went straight defense in this draft, which I believe is the first time it's happened in the modern era, if you will. I believe I was listening to a podcast where they said that was the case. But if you want to rebuild a defense, this is how you do it. And honestly, I'm going to opine here for a second. I was actually afraid going into this draft that Matt Rule was going to have the Chip Kelly mindset where he's got to get players that he's previously coached. I was worried that they were going to reach for guys like Denzel Mims and Matt Hennessy, and that ended up not happening. So I'm much more confident in Matt Rule's ability to lead this team to the next era than I was 4 or 5 days ago. So that's really interesting, is that, it wasn't, these are the guys that I know more than you because I've coached them. He was really intent on, rebuilding a defense and using a variety of players from a variety of places to accomplish that goal. And I think they did that, which is great because, like I said, you got 3 potential impact starters right out of the gate in the first 2 rounds. I think Troy Pride is going to impress people more than people already know. He might be another starter. I'm not saying all these picks are going to hit because that'd be ridiculous, but this could be a draft that we look back on for the Carolina Panthers and say, this is where the foundation started, especially for the defense. They've got the offense pretty much figured out. For this season, it's still a transition. They still are rebuilding. Teddy Bridgewater figures to be the starter for this and next year. But if they play bad enough next year, maybe they go get Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields in the first round. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up for today's video and my thoughts on the Carolina Panthers. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for the next one.